Competing for the top spot on the score ranking board seemed like an incredibly difficult challenge for Chen and his team. After all, their current score had already been surpassed by Chen by nearly 50,000 points. Such a vast gap couldn't be closed through ordinary means, and Chen was well aware of this. At this point, conventional methods just wouldn't work. It was well known that the 16 teams with the highest scores in the current Spiritual Academy Grand Competition were also the strongest in terms of combat power. These teams typically represented the peak of the competition. As a result, it was rare for teams to target these top 16 directly. Most teams would instead focus on weaker ones they could defeat, stealing points in an attempt to catch up. Few dared to go after the top teams, knowing how dangerous it could be to challenge them head-on. But if Chen wanted to close the gap with Chen, he would have no choice but to take risks. Thus, his target was set on all the powerful teams ranked after the 8th place. Apart from Shan Songxing and his team, they were the ones he needed to focus on. This time, Chen didn't join forces with Wen Qingxian. Instead, he teamed up with Shan Songxing, Li Xintong, Su Xian, and Su Huang for an independent operation. Even Luoli was left behind. Chen needed her to assist Wen Qingxian with something else, causing trouble for Xian. He didn't expect Wen Qingxian and Luoli to defeat Xian directly. But with their strength, plus the help of their teammates, they could certainly cause enough trouble to disrupt Xian's progress. At the very least, it would slow down his efforts to gather points. Normally, splitting up into 2 teams wasn't the wisest move in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. It was too easy for other teams to concentrate their power and eliminate them one by one. But Chen wasn't worried. He had complete confidence in both Wen Qingxian and Luoli. If they truly teamed up, even he wouldn't dare say he could defeat them. With their combined strength, Chen trusted them even more than he trusted himself. As for the next steps in gathering points, that was entirely up to Chen. In the middle of a desolate wasteland, violent spiritual energy surged. Amidst the turbulence, dozens of figures appeared. However, it was clear that this was an encirclement, with more than 20 people forming a trapping formation, and their target was a team trapped within. Though outnumbered, the surprising thing was that the ones retreating step by step were the 4 or 5 teams that had joined the encirclement. Shoo! A sharp whistle of wind cut through the air as a figure dashed out like a ghost. Holding a black spear, the tip was shaped like the sharp beak of a hawk, razor sharp, and as spiritual energy surged, the air itself seemed to tear apart. The figure was surrounded by an overwhelming aura of spiritual power. He charged directly into the encircling teams, and the spear's light exploded, instantly tearing apart their formation. The encircling teams were thrown into chaos. No matter how loudly their leader shouted, they could no longer unite in attack. The figure gave chase relentlessly. In just a few minutes, the teams that had surrounded them were all wounded by his hand. Finally, amidst their screams of pain, their academy tokens were ruthlessly taken. Heh, you thought that by finding some help, you could escape the hunt of our Demon Vulture Spiritual Academy? How foolish. The figure stopped, revealing a skinny body, a young man dressed in a black robe. His eyes were cold, and he had a hawk-like nose. With a vicious kick, he sent one of the figures flying, causing him to spit blood as he was knocked back. Haha, boss, we've secured 2,000 points. Behind the black-robed youth, 4 other figures rushed forward. They grinned as they looked at the academy token and said, "At this rate, we might catch up to Chen, who's ranked 8th. Chen, huh? Humph, that guy's been making quite a name for himself lately." The black-robed youth sneered, his voice laced with jealousy. "Hey boss, you're not any weaker than him." The young man in the black robe heard the compliments and his expression softened slightly. Just as he was about to speak, his gaze suddenly changed. He abruptly raised his head and looked towards a nearby hill, where several figures slowly appeared. "Heh, since you all want to witness it, there's no better time than now. I, Chen, will be waiting here." A clear, bright laugh came from the hill. The tall and slender figure of the young man appeared in the line of sight of the Demon Vulture Spiritual Academy team. Chen? Upon hearing this name, not only did the 4 members of the Demon Vulture Spiritual Academy change their expressions drastically, but even the corners of the black-robed young man's mouth twitched slightly. Mu Chen, we've never crossed paths, so why are you suddenly here? What do you want? The black-robed youth said in a deep voice, his eyes full of vigilance and caution. Clearly, the person before them was not someone to be taken lightly. I just want to borrow the academy token from Captain Su Yao, Mu Chen replied with a slight smile, locking eyes with the black-robed young man. This team was no insignificant group. Ranked 9th on the score ranking, Demon Vulture Spiritual Academy, Captain Su Yao, with a score of 48,000. This team from the Demon Vulture Spiritual Academy had once been ranked as high as 6th, but as the competition intensified, they had been overtaken by others, now falling to 9th place. However, their strength was formidable. Xin Songxing and his group had previously encountered them and had even clashed, but they were at a disadvantage and had to retreat temporarily. Clearly, this team was Mu Chen's first target. Heh, so you want to steal our points. Captain Mu Chen, you really have big ambitions. Su Yao sneered. He was well aware of the rules. Typically, those on the leaderboard kept to themselves, as they all had some power. It would be unwise to take action against such teams, as it would come at a great cost and offer little reward. In his view, Mu Chen was clearly blinded by the points. Mu Chen smiled, but didn't waste any more words. Instead, he took action to show his intentions. He stepped forward, and black lightning erupted from his body. 7 thunder patterns appeared on his chest, and at the same time, a scarlet beam shot up from his crown, transforming into a massive demonic pillar. Clearly, Mu Chen had no intention of delaying the battle. He immediately activated his thunder god body to its peak and summoned the great Xun'er demon pillar. He was determined to end the battle with the most powerful force. Attack! Mu Chen's face was expressionless. He stamped his foot, and his body shot out like lightning. With his hands raised, the great Xun'er demon pillar descended from the sky, casting a giant shadow over Su Yao's team. Behind him, Xin Songxing and Li Xiantong had also gathered their spiritual energy to its peak, charging forward. Seeing Mu Chen and his group charge toward them with murderous intent, Su Yao's team finally showed signs of concern. Then, even more violent spiritual energy erupted from the barren land. When the battle finally ended, massive cracks, like a spider's web, spread across the barren land. The brutal scene sent chills down the spine of anyone witnessing it. Mu Chen hovered in midair, the lightning surrounding him dissipating. With a single motion, he summoned Su Yao's body from the cracks in the earth and plucked the academy token from his sleeve. Mu Chen, with a calm expression, swiped the points on the token. Instantly, the points skyrocketed from around 60,000 to 80,000, and his rank rose from 8th to 6th. Thank you, Mu Chen said as he tossed the token back to Su Yao. With a slight bow, he turned and left, while Xin Songxing and the others quickly regrouped and followed him. They needed to head toward another target immediately. After Mu Chen's departure, Su Yao finally let out a furious roar, one that resembled the growl of a wild beast. At the same time that Mu Chen defeated Su Yao, in a certain area of the vast central region, several figures stood in the air. It was the team led by Xian. Captain, Mu Chen's score suddenly skyrocketed, and he's now ranked 6th. Behind Xian, a young man named Mu Feng frowned and said. Xian narrowed his eyes upon hearing this. Mu Chen has such guts? He actually went for this kind of team? Mu Feng exclaimed in surprise. Xian's eyes flickered as he sneered. It seems like he's aiming for the top spot on the score ranking. How naive. What should we do? Mu Feng asked. We'll make our move without holding back. We'll target the teams ranked after 8th place. Xian said coldly. All right. Mu Feng grinned and nodded. Xian waved his hand, ready to leave. But before his hand could even fall, his pupils suddenly contracted. He slowly looked up and saw, on a distant mountain peak, spiritual light flickering. Then, 2 graceful figures leading a team appeared in their line of sight. Wenqing Xian, Luo Li. When Mu Feng saw the familiar figures, his expression immediately changed. For the next while, don't even think about disturbing other teams, Wenqing Xian said with a smile, her delicate hand tightly gripping a battle spear. Of course, if you fancy our score, feel free to make a move. Let's see who will swallow whom. Jixin's expression darkened bit by bit. This Mu Chen really knows how to make moves. In just one day, the changes in the top 16 of the score ranking had clearly caused a massive uproar in this vast central region. They discovered that, aside from the team from Northern Heaven's Spiritual Academy, who hadn't made a move, every other team that had been ranked after 8th place had been kicked out of the top 16. In their place, a new batch of strong teams had emerged. If only one or two teams had made such a change, it might not have drawn too much attention, as the score competition in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition was extremely fierce, and even these strong teams could easily be knocked down. However, when this change gathered all at once, it was impossible not to be shocked. Especially when they saw that the team originally ranked 8th had, in just one day, risen at a terrifying speed, eventually overtaking the 3rd place team, Wu Ling, and securing 3rd place with ease. The shock only deepened. At this point, even an idiot could figure out which teams had been knocked out. And the one behind all this was none other than the big shot who had taken the entire Spiritual Academy Grand Competition by storm, Mu Chen. This guy is a freak. How did he manage to defeat so many strong teams in just one day? Doesn't he fear things going wrong? The entire Spiritual Academy Grand Competition was in an uproar. They couldn't fathom how Mu Chen could be so audacious, directly targeting all these top-tier teams. What was even scarier was that he had actually succeeded. In just one day, Mu Chen had defeated 7 top teams, each of which had a powerful expert with dual divine soul tribulation holding their ground. This achievement left many people dumbfounded, because this kind of action was truly insane. They couldn't understand. Didn't Mu Chen fear that these strong teams would fight to the death and end up with him losing everything? In such a situation, if Mu Chen was heavily injured, many top teams would definitely target him as their prey. That's why those strong teams ranked in the top 8 hadn't easily attacked these teams, as they were a bit cautious. Though they knew this was the most efficient way to see scores, they didn't dare to take the risk. But no one had expected that while they hesitated, Mu Chen had already made his move and succeeded. On a lone peak, Wu Ling looked at the academy token on which his team had been surpassed, now sitting at 3rd place, and couldn't help but shrug in resignation. What's Mu Chen doing? Why is he suddenly so crazy? Is he planning to compete with Jixin for 1st place? Behind Wu Ling, Wu Yingying also asked in confusion. Looks like it, Wu Ling chuckled. Didn't you notice how Jixin's score progress has slowed down a lot? I heard they're starting to panic. When Qingxian and Luo Li are both making a move, tying them up. With their strength, though it might be troublesome to defeat Jixin, if they just want to mess with him, Jixin won't have much of a countermeasure. Heh, they're buying time for Mu Chen. Seems like their feud has truly started. Back in the Spirit Road, Jixin set Mu Chen up once. But in just one day, Mu Chen had faced so many strong teams, which took a significant toll on him. If he were to sustain any injuries, those top-tier teams would undoubtedly be watching him closely. Wu Yingying said with concern. She was well aware that no matter how powerful Mu Chen was, defeating so many strong teams would inevitably drain him. With Luo Li and Wen Qingxian not by his side, it was likely that more teams would now target him. These top-tier teams probably wouldn't let Mu Chen easily recover to his peak condition. This meant that in the coming period, Mu Chen and his team were in the most danger. Now, the gap between Mu Chen's score and Jixin's is only about 20,000, Wu Yingying said, her gaze fixed on the academy token. Jixin still held the 1st place, with a score of 130,000, while Mu Chen ranked 3rd with 110,000. When Qingxian remained in 2nd place, her score slightly higher than Mu Chen's. In just one day, Mu Chen had surged from 8th place to 3rd, closing the previously large gap with Jixin. His strategy has worked halfway, Wu Yingying continued. Now, he should be thinking about how to preserve these points with such enormous consumption. Wu Ling spoke calmly. Perhaps when Qingxian and Luo Li are also trying to rush back to protect Mu Chen, deterring other teams eyeing him. However, Jixin probably won't let them leave so easily. Wu Yingying nodded in agreement. Mu Chen, after so many intense battles, was probably in his worst condition right now. Wu Ling suddenly let out a soft exclamation, his eyes narrowing as he stared at the academy token. What is it? Wu Yingying quickly asked. It seems one of the top teams can no longer hold back. Wu Ling pointed to the academy token. A familiar team was rapidly closing in on Mu Chen. This team, ranked 6th on the score chart, came from the Nine Cauldrons Spiritual Academy. The leader of this team was none other than Fang Yun, Jixian's ally. Fang Yun is going after Mu Chen. Wu Yingying's face changed immediately. Whoosh! The sharp sound of wind tearing through the sky rang out. Mu Chen, leading the way, swiftly darted forward. Behind him, Shun Songxing, Li Xintong, and the others followed closely, their spiritual energy fluctuations somewhat disordered. In just one day, they had defeated 7 powerful teams. Although Mu Chen had personally dealt with the strongest opponents, the others had all been handled by Shan Songxing and the others. Thus, their consumption had been immense. Coupled with the urgent time constraints, they had no time to recover, and their spiritual energy never reached its peak. They dared not stay in one place for too long, knowing how many eyes were now watching them. Shan Songxing's gaze was fixed on Mu Chen, whose expression was calm, but Shan Songxing knew that Mu Chen was the one most exhausted. Throughout the battles, Mu Chen had been finishing them as quickly as possible, which further drained him. Mu Chen, Luoli, and Wen Qingxian should also be tangled up. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so slow. Shan Songxing took a deep breath, glanced at the academy token, and spoke in a low voice. Mu Chen nodded slightly. Jixian was no fool. He probably knew this, so he wouldn't let Luoli and the others return to reunite with him easily. We need to find a place to recover our spiritual energy, Li Xintong said solemnly. I can feel many strong teams secretly heading towards us. All right, just follow me. Once we get there, our mission will be a success. Mu Chen nodded again, his speed surging once more. Shan Songxing and Li Xintong immediately brightened, quickening their pace to follow. The 5 of them sped forward, encountering several teams along the way. The teams gazed at Mu Chen's group with greed, but because of Mu Chen's fierce reputation, none dared to stop them. The forest was shrouded by vast thorn iron trees, with a strange aura swirling within. The sharp iron thorns made the forest resemble a gigantic hedgehog. This forest was no stranger. It was the Thornbush Forest within Wood God Mountain. In this forest, there was also a spirit treasury hall. This was Mu Chen's destination, as he knew that within this forest lay the ability to suppress spiritual energy. Anyone entering would be unable to use their spiritual powers, ensuring complete safety as long as they were not disturbed. Once they had fully recovered, those who had been eyeing them would not dare to make any further moves. Let's go. Mu Chen gestured to Shan Songxing and the others. Seeing this, the 4 of them were visibly pleased and quickly quickened their pace, about to rush into the Thornbush Forest. Be careful. However, just as they were about to land, Mu Chen's expression suddenly changed. He moved swiftly and appeared before them, black lightning erupting. Boom, boom. A terrifying spiritual energy lash swept horizontally from a mountain peak, directly striking Mu Chen's body. The lightning flickered, pushing him back. Mu Chen's body shuddered slightly. Mu Chen's gaze darkened as he stared at the mountain peak. Several figures appeared, and the leader, familiar to him, was Fang Yun from the Nine Cauldrons Spiritual Academy. At this moment, he was holding a glowing divine cauldron and smiling as he looked at Mu Chen. Captain Mu Chen, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Outside the black thornbush forest, Mu Chen and his 4 companions hovered in the air. His brow furrowed slightly as he looked ahead. On the hillside, Fang Yun was smiling at him. Behind him, 4 team members stood, watching them closely, their spiritual energy surging. Fang Yun and his team were blocking the path to the forest. If they wanted to enter, they would have to pass through them. It was clear that Fang Yun's group had been waiting here for them. Heh, Captain Mu Chen, this isn't my fault. I'd say you've simply gotten too greedy, Fang Yun said with a smile. Mu Chen narrowed his eyes and said, It seems that Captain Fang Yun doesn't intend to step aside? Fang Yun lightly shook his head. There was a faint murderous glint in his eyes, but his face still wore a warm smile. Captain Mu Chen, I know you're strong, but after 7 fierce battles, you must be greatly exhausted by the other captains, right? Do you still have 50% of your peak combat power left? And even if you can conserve some battle strength, Your team is already on the brink. If you fight us now, I'm afraid your chances of winning are slim." Mu Chen remained expressionless. Behind him, Shen Songxing and Li Xuantong's eyes grew cold as their hands slowly gripped their long spears. "So, Captain Mu Chen, please hand over your academy token to me." Fang Yun extended his hand towards Mu Chen with a smile. "Don't try to resist. There are plenty of eyes on you now, and you probably can't handle another round of exhaustion." A gentle breeze passed by, but it did nothing to break the stillness in the air. Fang Yun's face was full of smiles, yet his expression held an icy edge. His eyes locked with Mu Chen's, unwavering. While Mu Chen's reputation had skyrocketed after his battle with Jixin, Fang Yun was no pushover either. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made it this far. The two stared at each other in midair, sparks flying. "Looks like you're not interested in my offer," Fang Yun said with a helpless smile when Mu Chen showed no signs of handing over the academy token. However, his smile held little warmth. "Since that's the case, I'll have to take matters into my own hands." Fang Yun slowly raised his hand. In his palm hovered a small divine cauldron, radiating dazzling spiritual light. The ancient bronze cauldron was etched with vivid symbols of dragons and tigers. From within the cauldron, the faint sound of a dragon's roar and a tiger's growl seemed to emanate. The divine cauldron floated silently in Fang Yun's palm. Divine artifact? Mu Chen's pupils constricted as he stared at the bronze divine cauldron in Fang Yun's hand and whispered. He too possessed a semi-divine artifact, the mystic tortoise seal. However, he could faintly sense that the bronze divine cauldron in Fang Yun's possession might be even more powerful than his own mystic tortoise seal. Since the mystic tortoise seal was a semi-divine artifact, then the bronze divine artifact in front of him, could it have already surpassed the level of a semi-divine artifact? Was it at the level of an inferior divine artifact? Inferior divine artifacts were true divine artifacts, their power immeasurable. This is the Academy Guardian Divine Artifact of our Nine Cauldrons Spiritual Academy, an inferior divine artifact. The Dragon Tiger Divine Cauldron. Fang Yun looked at Mu Chen and said calmly, "Mu Chen, do you really think you can fight Jixin? Do you believe there is no one in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition who can defeat you?" Inferior divine artifact, the Dragon Tiger Divine Cauldron. As soon as these words were spoken, Shen Songxing and the others' expressions changed subtly. Although they hadn't yet personally experienced the power of the bronze divine cauldron in Fang Yun's hand, just the term divine artifact was enough to make them feel wary. In the Great Thousand Worlds, divine artifacts were synonymous with power everywhere. A powerhouse who possessed a divine artifact could even face stronger opponents with the ability to resist. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, as Mu Chen and Fang Yun stood off, the sound of wind cutting through the air came from the distance. They could see light and shadows speeding toward their direction. Clearly, these were teams heading straight for Mu Chen and the others. When the teams stopped at a distance from the thornbush forest, their gazes shot over, and when they saw that Mu Chen and the others had been intercepted by Fang Yun, excitement surged in their eyes. Mu Chen was already in a weakened state. If he had to fight with a top-tier team like Fang Yun's, the price would be heavy, and that would give them an opportunity to strike. Fang Yun actually summoned the Dragon Tiger Divine Cauldron. It seems he's quite cautious about Mu Chen. Some people with sharp eyes immediately noticed the bronze divine cauldron hovering in Fang Yun's palm. Mu Chen is no pushover. Even if he's not at his peak, underestimating him would be the greatest mistake. Clearly, Fang Yun is not one of those fools. Let them fight. The more intense, the better. Ideally, they'll both suffer heavy losses, and then we'll have a chance. In the distance, whispers could be heard, but their gazes were far from friendly. The figures in the distance were naturally noticed by Mu Chen and the others. Shen Songxing and Li Xiantong exchanged a glance, their hearts sinking. Fang Yun, however, smiled as he looked at Mu Chen and the others. Then, he suddenly changed his hand seals. The bronze divine cauldron immediately flew out of his hand. As it surged with spiritual light, it rapidly expanded, growing hundreds of meters large. The spiritual light around the divine cauldron shimmered, emitting a sense of profound weight. Under the influence of this pressure, it felt as though even space itself was subtly distorted. Go! Fang Yun's expression was indifferent. The bronze divine cauldron shot into the air above Mu Chen and the others. It then descended like a mountain, carrying terrifying power. Boom! As the divine cauldron descended, the air exploded, and a shadow loomed over them. The terrifying oppressive force transmitted through the air, causing Chen, Songxing, and the others to change their expressions dramatically. Before the divine cauldron even landed, its power was already overwhelming. The might of a divine artifact was truly extraordinary. Whoosh! Mu Chen's eyes froze as he stared at the descending divine cauldron. With a wave of his sleeve, a brilliant beam of spiritual light shot out, like a rainbow, crashing into the divine cauldron with lightning speed. Clang! A clear metallic sound rang out. The piercing sound waves shattered the air, and visible shockwaves spread out, extending over 1,000 meters. Everyone looked up and saw two massive objects, a huge dark blue stone seal and the enormous bronze divine cauldron. At this moment, both the stone seal and the divine cauldron were releasing terrifying waves of spiritual energy, violently colliding with each other. With every impact, a violent spiritual energy storm erupted. The stone seal, of course, was Mu Chen's semi-divine artifact, the mystic tortoise seal. However, this once powerful mystic tortoise seal now faced a formidable opponent. No matter how the mystic tortoise seal unleashed its spiritual light, it couldn't push the bronze divine cauldron back. Heh, is it an inferior divine artifact? But it seems like there's still quite a difference from a real divine artifact, Fang Yun said with a smile, watching the scene. Swish! Mu Chen gave Fang Yun a cold glance, then stomped his foot. His body suddenly shot out like a bolt of lightning, heading straight for Fang Yun. If you were at your peak, I wouldn't dare to clash with you head-on, but you're in this state, and yet you dare to take such a risky move? Aren't you being a bit too arrogant? Fang Yun remained unfazed, seeing Mu Chen charge at him, even letting out a cold laugh. Divine Cauldron Palm. Fang Yun quickly changed his hand seal. His immense spiritual energy surged out like a storm from his body, transforming into a giant bronze hand. The form of a dragon and tiger could vaguely be seen on the hand. Get back! Fang Yun shouted, and the bronze giant hand slammed toward Mu Chen with terrifying force. The moment Fang Yun attacked, it was a ruthless move. He knew that Mu Chen's spiritual energy had been greatly depleted, and if they clashed head-on, Mu Chen would definitely be no match for him. Behind them, Chen Songxing and the others saw the viciousness of Fang Yun's attack and couldn't help but change their expressions. Judging by the intensity of Fang Yun's strike, his strength was clearly closing in on the triple divine soul tribulation. If Mu Chen were in his prime, there wouldn't be much of a problem, but now, with his spiritual energy so heavily depleted, his combat ability was significantly reduced. Boom! The bronze giant hand came crashing down, and Mu Chen looked up. Surprisingly, his handsome face showed no signs of panic. At this time, you still want to act all composed? Fang Yun's eyes turned cold, and with a thought, the bronze giant hand became even more ferocious. Even in my current state, you still think you can take advantage of me? A mocking smile finally appeared on Mu Chen's otherwise expressionless face. He suddenly formed a peculiar hand seal with one hand. Boom! The moment Mu Chen finished the hand seal, the entire world seemed to shake violently. Then, everyone felt the sky darken considerably. Swish! From afar, several strong teams suddenly changed their expressions. They looked up in horror toward the distance. In the distant thornbush forest, the thorny iron trees, glowing with a dark light, rapidly withered. As they withered, dark spiritual energy surged up like a black tidal wave, rising toward the sky. The scene resembled a flood of blackness descending from the heavens, as if the end of the world had come. Fang Yun's expression also changed dramatically. The dark spiritual energy exuded a chilling glow, like a black sky rising, and the overwhelming spiritual pressure swept across, as if it were about to stir up a storm in the world. Everyone stood dumbfounded, staring at the astonishing scene before them. They could all feel the immense power of the dark spiritual energy, and they were unable to believe that Mu Chun could summon such formidable spiritual energy even in his current condition. Fang Yun's face turned pale as he watched the vast dark spiritual energy, his eyes filled with shock. Damn it! Fang Yun gritted his teeth. He had originally planned to take advantage of Mu Chen's weakened state to grab his academy token, but who would have thought that Mu Chun, after enduring countless fierce battles, still had such power left? At this point, it was clear that there was no turning back. Boom! Fang Yun's eyes turned cold, his hand seal changing again. The bronze giant hand then slammed down with even more force. Mu Chun remained expressionless, flicking his fingers. The massive black spiritual energy surged like waves and collided directly with the bronze giant hand. Boom! A terrifying spiritual shockwave erupted, as if a storm were tearing apart the very heavens and earth, howling and threatening to rip the world asunder. The black spiritual energy surged in waves, and the bronze giant hand shattered instantly, eventually dissolving into nothingness under the relentless impact of the black spiritual energy. Mu Chen's eyes remained calm. He glanced at the thornbush forest, where many of the thorny iron trees had withered, as if the spiritual energy within them had been drained. That was because he had used the wood god technique earlier, and clearly, this time, its power was far stronger than when he had used it against Jixien. This is a rather rare spirit tree, which absorbs the spiritual energy of heaven and earth throughout the year, granting the thorn iron tree a certain degree of lethality. The sharp iron thorns are potent enough to be used as weapons, and when infused with spiritual energy, they can easily penetrate mountains and shatter stones. The spiritual energy contained within the thorn iron tree is far stronger than that of ordinary trees, which is why when Mu Chun unleashed the wood god's root this time, he was able to mobilize such immense and powerful spiritual energy. The black spiritual energy, like a tidal wave, smashed the bronze giant palm. Mu Chen's seal changed again. A faint voice echoed in his mind, "Heavenly would divine wheel." Buzz. The overwhelming black spiritual energy rapidly gathered. Then, under the gaze of countless eyes, it transformed into a massive black wheel several hundred zhang in diameter. The wheel's edges shimmered with a cold, eerie glow, sharp enough to seemingly tear space itself apart. The power of this heavenly wood divine wheel was clearly much stronger than when Mu Chun used it against Jixien. Fang Yun also sensed the terrifying power of the dark divine wheel, and his expression changed slightly. Whoosh! At the same time, Mu Chen's finger pointed into the air. The black divine wheel immediately began to spin wildly. In the next instant, it transformed into a streak of black light so fast that it was barely perceptible to the naked eye, heading straight for Fang Yun. Boom! Boom! The blurry black line streaked across the sky, leaving a shallow black mark in its wake as even the space itself was torn apart. Divine Cauldron Technique, Divine Cauldron Wall. Fang Yun stared at the scene, his expression turning grave. His hand immediately changed the seal, pressing down on the empty space before him. Boom! Immense spiritual energy erupted, rapidly spreading around him, forming a massive divine cauldron barrier about 100 zhang in size. The barrier was covered in a bronze hue, seemingly indestructible. Clang! Just as the divine cauldron wall took shape, the enormous black divine wheel swept toward him at lightning speed. The collision caused an ear-piercing metallic clang to reverberate through the heavens. Screech! The black divine wheel spun violently, and sharp spiritual energy seeped out. The seemingly indestructible divine cauldron wall immediately cracked with fractures that spread rapidly. This black divine wheel was evidently much sharper than when Mu Chun used it before. Its piercing force made even an expert like Fang Yun feel a shiver on his scalp. The crack spread quickly, and Fang Yun's face grew darker. Break! Mu Chen's long finger once again pointed into the air. In the faint voice, the spinning speed of the black divine wheel became more terrifying. In the end, with a thunderous sound, the wheel completely pierced through the divine cauldron wall. Boom! The divine cauldron wall shattered, scattering into countless glowing fragments. Even after breaking through the divine cauldron wall, the black divine wheel's momentum didn't slow down. Its target remained Fang Yun. Damn it! Fang Yun's face turned ashen. He never expected Mu Chen's attack to suddenly become so fierce. He had seen the heavenly wood divine wheel used against Ji Xian earlier, but he was certain that the power of that wheel was nowhere near as strong as this one. This realization left Fang Yun extremely frustrated. Did Mu Chen hold back during his fight with Ji Xian? Otherwise, how could the same attack, with the same power, suddenly become so much stronger? Swish! Fang Yun's thoughts raced, and his figure rapidly retreated like a ghost, trying to dodge the pursuit of the dark divine wheel. However, he had clearly underestimated the speed of the divine wheel. No matter how he tried to evade, the black divine wheel followed him like a shadow, and he could not escape. Since you want to strike, then leave a price to pay. Mu Chen's gaze was cold. He focused on the constantly dodging Fang Yun and suddenly changed his seal. The divine wheel's speed surged violently, flashing before Fang Yun in an instant, then slashing down with a fury that seemed to tear space apart. Bastard! Fang Yun's eyes finally showed signs of shock. He gritted his teeth, and with a thought, the dragon tiger divine cauldron, which had been pressing down on the mystic tortoise seal, suddenly shot back. Roar! The sound of dragon roars and tiger growls rang out as the dragon tiger cauldron melted, transforming into a glowing bronze liquid that enveloped Fang Yun's entire body. The bronze liquid wrapped around him, turning him into something resembling a bronze statue. Clang! The harsh sound echoed through the sky. Fang Yun's body was instantly sent flying backward, crashing violently into a mountain peak. The force was so overwhelming that the mountain could not withstand it, and it shattered apart. Fang Yun's body was deeply embedded into the mountain, like a ragged figure smashed into its core. Hiss! From a distance, many teams that were observing the battle couldn't help but take a sharp breath. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. They couldn't fathom it. Even in his current state, Mu Chen was still able to suppress Fang Yun. How terrifying is this guy? Mu Chen looked at Fang Yun, who was embedded in the mountain, then turned his gaze toward Chen, Zhangxing, and Li Xiantong, who were behind him. When they saw his look, they immediately understood, and without hesitation, they dashed forward, heading toward the distant thornbush forest. Fang Yun's 4 team members saw this, and their expressions changed slightly, trying to stop them. Boom! However, as they moved, Mu Chen appeared like a ghost in front of them. His indifferent expression immediately made the 4 step back hurriedly, fear and respect evident in their eyes. Even their captain couldn't stop Mu Chen. While they weren't weak themselves, none of them dared to confront Mu Chen. As they hesitated, Shan Zhangxing and the others finally entered the thornbush forest. With a few quick flashes, they disappeared into the shadowy darkness. Seeing this, Mu Chen let out a deep breath. Shan Zhangxing and the others carried the array discs he had given them, which could block the forbidden spirit array within the thornbush forest. This allowed them to use their spiritual energy, while others entering would lose control of their powers. Once they entered the thornbush forest, all threats would disappear. Bang! In the mountain, massive rocks shattered, and a somewhat battered figure shot up into the sky. Fang Yun appeared, covered in dust, his face ashen. At this moment, his face was pale with fury, and his body was still coated with bronze. There seemed to be a faint crack on his chest. Mu Chen's eyes sharpened. The move he had used earlier, if it had hit, would have seriously injured even a master with triple divine soul tribulation. Yet, Fang Yun, despite appearing disheveled, seemed not to have sustained any serious injuries. Such powerful protection from the dragon tiger cauldron, Mu Chen muttered inwardly. He knew that the only reason Fang Yun was unharmed was because of the dragon tiger cauldron's protection. A divine artifact was truly a divine artifact. Protected by such a treasure, even a triple divine soul tribulation expert would struggle to pose a real threat to Fang Yun. Mu Chen. Fang Yun's face darkened. The bronze liquid on his body stirred, eventually reforming into the dragon tiger cauldron in his hands. He glared at Mu Chen, clearly not expecting that what he thought would be an easy win would turn out to be so difficult. Mu Chen gave him a cold glance. With a swift movement, the mystic tortoise seal swept into his sleeve. Then, he moved like a ghost, blinking several times before appearing outside the thornbush forest. His body landed at the forest's edge, and he paused, turning his head to give Fang Yun, who was still looking grim, a faint smile. "If you're not done, feel free to follow. I'll stay until the end." Fang Yun clenched his fists, but ultimately did not dare to enter. He knew the dangers of this area. If he entered, his spiritual energy would dissipate. "Thanks for the hospitality. If I get the chance, I'll return the favor." Chen smirked, then turned his back on Fang Yun, waving as he walked into the forest, his figure soon engulfed by the shadows. "Bastard!" Fang Yun gritted his teeth, but could only give up in frustration. In the distant sky, the many powerful teams watching also sighed regretfully. This Chen is just too strong. However, they didn't know that as Chen stepped into the shadows, his face turned pale, and his hand trembled slightly. The spiritual energy inside him seemed to be boiling violently at this moment. In Chen's black eyes, it seemed as if flames were burning. He slightly curled the corner of his mouth because he knew what that meant.